Hi, I'm Astrid and I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the 3-year anniversary of the primetime meeting in Sweden. And I feel really honored to be asked to share my experience, strength, and hope with you guys. I know a couple of you. Hi, David. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Jonas. Hi, Robert. And the rest of you, hello too. Anyway, I don't have chapter 5. I don't have any of that stuff, so I'm just going to sort of get right into things. I feel that the message of AA has gotten watered down, and I really have a great appreciation for people, especially in other countries, that try to be pioneers and bring the authentic message of Alcoholics Anonymous back to the surface and hopefully carry it and pass the baton on to the next alcoholic. And that's what my home group in Los Angeles is about. We're very invested in just keeping the message really clear and concise and not having a whole lot of drama or drunkalogue or stories or problems. And I don't say that my way is the right way or the wrong way. I say that this is what works for me, and this is what works for numerous other people in our home group. And if you don't like it, you can always go somewhere else. I don't have the monopoly on it. We're not the be-all, end-all. I mean, really, there's one ultimate authority, and it's a loving God in the group and in people. So that being said, we look at the structure of our format, and it asks us to discuss alcoholism, ego, and self. And so I have to see, what is alcoholism? And for me, what it means in my life, as I've gone fishing and excavating, is that it's not just in the liquid. That's a very small aspect of alcoholism. As most of you probably know and realize, you have the phenomena of craving just like me. So 6% of the population in the world are actually allergic to alcohol. And it's an interesting allergic reaction because we don't break out in hives. We have the phenomena of craving and the body actually wants more. At a physiological standpoint, there's a lot that has to do with the pancreas, pre-diabetic stuff, not being able to process sugar. There's methylating problems in the average alcoholic. That being said, what happens is that we alchemize alcohol very differently, and it drives us, and there's no way to stop, and we lose the freedom of choice. So whatever your story is, we drank until the wheels fell off, and then we drank again until the wheels fell off, and then we drank again until the wheels fell off. But I want to look at the second half of step 1, which says that my life is unmanageable. And for me, what that means is that my thought life is unmanageable. Yes, my life was unmanageable when I was drinking and driven by the phenomena of craving, because I wake up every morning and I have a horrible hangover, and my mind tells me that I'm never going to do this again, and I swear it off for good, and somewhere around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I change my mind. I don't change my mind. The disease changes my mind, because the disease is much stronger than self-will. So I have to take these principles into consideration, that the disease is stronger than self-will, that I have the phenomena of craving, that the main part of the illness centers in my mind, that the second half of step 1 saying that my thought life is unmanageable. I have to really look inside myself and stop looking outward at other people. And I know a lot of the symptoms of untreated alcoholism have to do with an infantile ego, and have to do with the idea that if I could just control and manage situations or people or places or things, that everything would change and the king or the queen inside would be completely satisfied. But if we begin to look at our track record, we can see that it doesn't come out that way at all, and that we can constantly try to manipulate and control our environment, and to our satisfaction, we never get fully satisfied. Constantly, I'm wanting more, I'm needing more, it's just not right, and it's an unsatisfiable disease with an unsatisfiable mind. So as I begin to look inwardly, I start to really see the thoughts that surf the waves of my brain. I start to look at the thoughts that come from below the level of consciousness. And Bill Wilson in step 8, he talks about this, and he says that very deep, sometimes quite forgotten, damaging emotional conflicts persist below the level of consciousness. At the time of these occurrences, they may actually have given our emotions violent twists which have since discolored our personalities and altered our lives for the worse. And basically what that says in layman's terms is that very deep, sometimes quite forgotten incidences that happened in my life, maybe even reoccurring trauma or drama from the family of origin or the ecosystem that I was raised in, has created a way for me to survive, a survival mechanism or a survival tool which doesn't serve me any purpose. So maybe I've had to manipulate, or I've had to seek approval, or I've had to lie, or I've had to shut my mouth and never stand up for myself. Whatever the conflict is below the level, I've formed a tool and a way to maneuver through the world with this sickness, and all it does is actually make me sicker and sicker. It serves no purpose anymore. So as I start to look inward, I can see that these conflicts that persist below the level of consciousness are now raised to my conscious mind, where I can actually view them, and I see that I don't like rejection. Don't you dare say one bad thing about me. Mind you, I can talk shit about you all day long, but don't you dare say anything about me. Don't you dare tell someone one of my secrets. I'm going to tell everybody your secrets, but don't you dare tell anyone one of mine. And I can see that what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander, and I can see that the way I maneuver and manipulate through things, don't throw me away, but I'm going to throw you away. I can't stand to be thrown away. I want to choose when and how the relationship will end. And I start to look at these, what seem to be survival instincts, really have nothing to do with survival anymore. They're actually broken, damaged spin-offs of the ego coupled with the instinct for security, sex, or approval, and they're now a defect in my character. And as I begin to look at them, I see that I don't really have character defects. It's quite possible that I'm a 100% defective character to the core of my being. That maybe, just maybe, every one of my social skills and tools and the way I manipulate people or maneuver through the world might be able to raise up a little bit. Maybe I could change these. Maybe I don't need them. Maybe they don't serve a good purpose anymore. And what that does is it allows the freedom of humility to come in through humiliation. And I welcome the idea of my ego actually being smashed, of being in a space where I don't really know anything anymore. I don't know one single thing about how to maneuver through the world, how to make friends, how to apologize, how to be a loving person, how to be a good mother, how to be a good worker, how to sponsor people, how to suit up and show up, because there's always something going on below the level of consciousness. I might, like a robot, show up in these areas, but there's something that goes on in my mind as I show up in these areas that isn't quite right. And basically, I'm constantly disturbed, whether it's mild aspects or levels of untreated alcoholism, all the way up to severe panic attack and anxiety and anxiousness, or rage or fury or depression or suicidal or homicidal mania. And you know, the 12 and 12 says in page 93 that anytime I'm disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's actually something wrong with me. And what's wrong with me is that my ego finds something completely unacceptable, and I won't tolerate this, no way, and it's got to change. And the queen comes up out of the basement, and I start stomping my feet, and I start acting like a baby. And you can see, as Harry Tiebout so eloquently talks about, this king baby aspect, where I can go from throwing a complete temper tantrum all the way to off with your head, throw you away. And I know there's balance here somewhere. I see it every time I swing by, but I'm driven by these aspects of my ego that are infantile and queen all in one breath. And as I start to identify this stuff inside of me, it creates a very humble space where I don't want to get on my muscle anymore. I don't feel like being right. I don't need to argue. I don't need to tell somebody what to do or what's wrong with them or how they hurt my feelings or how I think I should be treated or how whatever is going on. I learn how to just stay in my lane and stay quiet inside, because I realize that maybe, just maybe, every single thought that surfs the waves of my brain might be infected with untreated alcoholism. And so what that does is that creates a situation where I need to work on me. I don't need to get invested in everybody else's life and everybody's business. You know, Bob used to say, Bob Anderson, the guy that started this format, he'd say, y'all don't have to change for me. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. I'm the one that wants to change. I want to be a better person. I want to raise my consciousness. I want to be loving. I want to be forgiving. I want to be kind. He'd also say, that doesn't mean that I'm a doormat. There's a very big difference between laying down and allowing somebody to completely abuse me and mow over me in a very toxic way, and then me thinking, I just need to stand up for myself and tell you what the hell's wrong with you. And, you know, those are the kind of situations that used to baffle me. And that's where I get to meet calamity with serenity, when I look at the 12 steps and I understand what spiritual principles are. In the beginning, I'm not expected to navigate through a situation like that where, am I a doormat or am I standing up for myself? Am I going to back down? Am I going to keep my mouth closed? Am I going to say something? Really, a lot of those tools and intuition and inspiration on how to handle situations, it comes later on as I begin to download more God and less self. And all of these tools, for me anyway, come from a feeling place. They come from my heart and they don't come from my head. I don't think I know it all. I don't come up with a brilliant idea. I have a feeling arise inside of me of what is the right thing to do, what is the right thing to say. And a lot of times I don't have the answer, and if I don't have the answer, I don't need to say anything. But certainly approval seeking and being needing to be treated a certain way, I have to let go of those things. I'm not trying to be mean, but the world is full of very crazy people. Very, very crazy people, toxic people. The rooms in AA are full of toxic people. I'm sure to people, they might even think I'm toxic, you know, and I want to be able to respond instead of react continuously. I don't want to be reactive. People are reactive all the time. They're reactive in their car with their horn, their finger is up, they've got stuff going on. That's who I used to be, and that's not the character I want to be today. But if I don't look at these pre-steps of the ego and untreated alcoholism, then I don't even know what I would do in step 3 or 4 or 5. And again, it's not a race. It's a way of life, and it's a spiritual way of living, and it's a spiritual plan of action. So I want to take both halves of step 1 into great consideration, that I'm powerless over many, many things. The phenomenon of craving can be triggered through chocolate cake, through alcohol, through pills, through powders, through porn, shopping, cutting, other people, codependency. Who knows? People can get obsessed with all kinds of things. The disease manifests in many, many different ways. And of course, basically, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we talk about the alcohol. But if you be a real alcoholic and you put the plug in the jug, you'll realize that very soon a new obsession will arise out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, even though you never drank Red Bulls, you're drinking 5 Red Bulls a day, or going to get coffee 3 or 4 times a day, or putting on weight and eating a lot of sugar where you never had a sugar problem before. So that being said, I look at the structure of step 2 and I see that I have to come to believe that a power can restore me to sanity. And if I don't come to the realization that I am insane or that I have an unsound mind, then I'm just going to gloss over this step very quickly and not thoroughly. And you know, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson talks about, he says, maybe you have disturbed the alcoholic about the question of his alcoholism. This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He will be more likely to follow suggestions. Never talk down to an alcoholic from a moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Show him how they work with you. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him that if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help him. If he's not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. So, I'm not here to try to preach to anybody. I don't talk down to anybody. I don't think I know anything more than anybody. I've had an experience with the steps, especially the first 3 steps, as a transformational building block to having a relationship with God, and this has worked for me, but I don't talk down to anybody from any spiritual hilltop. It's there for anybody to have, and I don't know how it can manifest for you. A lot of people say,